Hello, my fellow Dream Chasers. Welcome back to the channel. Today is the list that a lot of my fellow movie buffs, have been waiting for. It is time for my top 10 films of 2024. Now, much like previous years, this is where the rules are very simple. They have to be films that I've watched throughout 2024. And they had to have had a 2024 UK release, which sadly does rule out which for me, unfortunately, it does mean that because I didn't see it in time, well, I didn't get a chance to see the likes of Better Man, which came out on Boxing Day. But despite that, I'm going to give it an honorable mention in terms of the films that I haven't seen, but I'm definitely eager to, and I'll get round to it eventually. I do have other films that are honorable mentions that I haven't seen throughout 2024 as well, and I'll get to those. Soon enough. But first, a special dishonorable mention, because oh boy, let's just get the dishonorable mentions out of the way. Breathe, a very curious concept, but I just, even with the likes of Mila Jovovich as part of the cast, it was a bit of a letdown. A great concept, don't get me wrong, but they didn't really explore it that much. Much like Night Swim. Again, a great concept that they don't really explore that much. Kung Fu Panda 4. And there's a very specific reason this is a dishonorable mention. The insufferable voice of Awkwafina, who is not funny as a voice actor, and she never will be. Put her into something like Crazy Rich Asians? Yeah, she's funny there. She's not funny as a voice actor because it just feels forced. So forced. Then you've got Sting, which, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this one. I have watched it. I thought it was okay. You've got a teenage girl who's looking after this spider, and it ends up becoming a giant spider killing people. It's a disappointing creature feature in my eyes. I mean, in hindsight with this next one, it is a bit of a letdown. Especially when you've got a new game in the franchise on the way. Borderlands. Don't get me wrong, there were moments where it was just all-out chaos and I was here for it. But aside from that, it's a letdown even for those that are not as big a Borderlands fan as those that have been part of the Borderlands fandom from the start. I mean, where was No Rest for the Wicked? Ugh. Anyway. But this is the special dishonorable mention.
What did you say about my brother? That's not a stray, that's my brother.
And that alone is why. This is another case of it is completely unnecessary. When are Disney going to wake up and realize that people are getting bored of these live action remakes, some of them completely unnecessary? And yes, I am classing it as a live action remake. I am not classing it as animated. At least with something like Dinosaur, you can tell it's animated. You can tell the dinosaurs are animated. Here, they're just real creatures. They are real creatures with moving mouths. They tried to fix the issue of the characters not showing enough emotion, but now they've gone too far into the uncanny valley. Oh no, you are not made for... Get it out of here! You are not made for close-ups! Yikes! But the biggest reason this is a special dishonorable mention, they had the nerve to throw a film that came out on the same day under the bus and exclude it from the best, from being in the running on the long list for best picture at the Oscars. Mufasa makes it okay, but the other film doesn't. And then the absolute nerve to say, oh, we're the #1 film. Domestically, no, you're not. You've not been the #1 domestic film from day one. The only reason you're doing well internationally is because you got a China release and the other film didn't. And I'm still trying to work out why. So, by the way, Disney, how much did you pay the Academy to exclude Sonic 3 from being eligible for Best Picture? How much did you pay them? It met all the criteria. How much did you pay the Academy? That is unacceptable and inexcusable. No wonder people are getting so fed up with you. But me having a Disney Disney series on my YouTube, on my channel, I'm contractually obligated to go and see it. But I'm waiting until it comes out on Disney Plus because I am not even gonna use my Odeon Limitless card to go and see it. I'm gonna wait till it comes out on Disney Plus, and then I am going to watch it for the purposes of the Kingdom of Isolation. And it will be the only time I watch it because I will be watching it to get the clips, and then the clips can just go cut, paste, done. And I'm never watching it again after that. I'm convinced. Part of me has a headcanon that song that's all about it. That song that's about his brother. Ugh. I'm convinced. My headcanon says that song, that's not Lin-Manuel Miranda. Still, dishonorable mentions out of the way. So, next up, time to get into the main top 10 list. So, here we go.
Number 10.
Number 10, Heretic. If there was ever a reason to stop you from missing church on a Sunday, this film definitely does that. A horror film. It's a psychological horror, I should say. A psychological horror that involves church missionaries and Hugh Grant, who is so calm but intimidating at the same time. A24 do not disappoint when it comes to their horror films. Hereditary, Midsummer, and now you can add Heretic to that list as well. This, for me, was a very unsettling experience. But that's what I want from psychological horror films. And of course, if you're a fan of A24's work, definitely recommend this one.
Number 9.
Now, I might get a lot of criticism for this one for it being so low in my top 10 list. But that being said, there's a lot of other films that I saw throughout this year that I thought deserved the higher placing on the list. But that just shows how good this year is in terms of films. Case in point with 2023. I did a top 10 non-animated films. I did a top 10 animated films. And then I put those lists together at the end to show you the overall top 10. That is how good 2023 was. This year, 2024, was also a fantastic year. So, number 9, Deadpool and Wolverine. Thank God midnight screenings are back. This is the sort of film that deserved to have a midnight screening. And I am so glad I got to be part of it. Easily one of the best midnight screening experiences I've had. The best one I've had since Avengers Endgame. I've actually got one of the collector's cups from Astoria Cinema, which is part of the Merlin Cinemas brand. I've actually got one of the collector's cups in my kitchen. Absolutely fantastic. But man, that's how you get Deadpool into the MCU. Especially the moments where he just breaks the camera. Suck it, Fox. I'm going to Disneyland. And of course, the song Like a Prayer has been part of the film's marketing since the first trailer, and the way they use it throughout the second portion of the film is just brilliant. Oh man! Thank goodness as well. We also got the iconic Wolverine costumes. That only took 20 bleeping years. Deadpool now officially part of the MCU. We've got the X-Men officially part of the MCU. We got cameos from Elektra and Blade. And Channing Tatum as Gambit is something I never knew I needed. But honestly, such a fun film. We definitely need more films like this that are just so much fun to watch. And you can easily rewatch them at any time. If you haven't had a chance to see it in cinemas, it's on Disney Plus now. Just make sure the kids are firmly either in bed or staying at their friends.
Number 8.
Number 8 definitely gives us a deeper appreciation for the stunt teams that make all the stunts possible. Case in point, The Fall Guy. This is, as I've said, this definitely gives you a deeper appreciation for the stunt teams that make all those action set pieces possible. And genuinely, I really hope we get a Best Stunts Oscar at some point in the near future, thanks to films like this. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, great casting for them. Hannah Waddingham is one of my favorite actresses now, especially after her being on Ted Lasso, one of my favorite TV series in recent years. But if you definitely want to get effectively a behind the scenes look on how stunt teams work, this film is definitely the film to check out in regards to that.
Number 7.
Those that have known me long enough will know that I love my animated films and I especially love my sports films. But to round up the podium, nothing beats a wholesome family movie. And Paddington in Peru does exactly that. And genuinely, what an amazing end to the trilogy. I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding some of the casting, some of the recasting news. But that being said, the casting, absolutely fantastic, especially with Antonio Banderas. I honestly love Antonio Banderas, especially with his work as Puss in Boots. Actually, side note, you launch me and the rest of you play double time. Oh man. God, I love The Last Wish. Had no right being as good as it is. but like I say, this film, it's a wholesome family movie. A great adventure as well, where Paddington goes back to where he came from. And you've definitely got Indiana Jones vibes coming from this. Antonio Banderas being part of a family that's obsessed with finding treasure and the family being cursed because of it. It's such an amazing film. And if you're a fan, if you're a fan of our favorite Bear from Darkest Peru, this one I can absolutely recommend.
Number 6.
So now we're going to get into the big hitters. Yeah, we're only at number 6 and we're already getting into the big hitters. Number 6. Of course I was going to include Wicked on this list. Why wouldn't I include Wicked? A big screen adaptation of one of the most popular Broadway musicals of all time, which started out as a book originally, and genuinely does not disappoint. The set design is incredible. They grew all those flowers themselves. The costumes are amazing. And of course, the biggest selling point, the music. Cynthia Evero as Elphaba, Ariana Grande as Glinda, two phenomenal voices. Ariana Grande suited Glinda so well. There was the possibility of her being Elphaba, but I'm really glad Cynthia got the role, especially with how powerful her voice is, because Cynthia has been on Broadway previously as well. Then Jeff Goldblum as the wizard who doesn't know any magic somehow. But honestly, if this doesn't give you any incentive to see the Wicked musical, I don't know what will. So we're halfway through the list. Let's go through the honorable mentions. Films that I have seen, but just weren't quite good enough to make the top 10. We're going to go with Moana 2. I thought it was okay, but again, I will happily go back to the original. And I'll go into more detail when Moana 2 comes out on Disney Plus for that episode of The Kingdom of Isolation. Red 1, Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons. Christmas film. I couldn't justify putting this one in my top 10. But that being said, it's still fun. If you want to know how if you want to know how good someone is at a role, they make you believe that they are actually that person. Sebastian Stan as a young Donald Trump in The Apprentice. The fact America was stupid enough to vote in a criminal, and he has been charged, the fact they voted in a criminal as president. And I thought the UK were being made a laughingstock after leaving the EU. America are even more of a laughingstock because again, they voted in a criminal as president. Honestly. But Sebastian Stan does such a good job of showing that Trump has never been a likable person. He's never been a likable person, especially in the New York area. But that being said, that's what makes Sebastian Stan such a great casting choice for the soon-to-be 47th President of the United States. This film was actually part of the Cannes Film Festival as well, as a side note, which is no mean feat to have your film be part of one of the biggest film festivals in the world. Is testament to how amazing, is testament to how good this film is. It just wasn't quite good enough to reach the top 10. It actually got nominated for the Palme d'Or, which is simply incredible. But the film that did end up winning the Palme d'Or was a film called Anora. Maybe I should start looking at the Cannes Film Festival lineup, and maybe I should watch the Palme d'Or winners every year. And of course, normally around this time of year, you've got films that have been nominated for Oscars that are already out stateside, and they end up coming to the UK after they get the Oscar nominations to try and drive up the buzz for the films. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that ends up being the case this year as well. If I really enjoyed having this one, being able to reunite grown-ups with their imaginary friends. What a great concept, and I enjoyed it. It's on Paramount Plus if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It's definitely one. It's definitely one I can recommend, especially for the kids. Gladiator 2. It was this close to making the top 10. It just didn't quite make it. I thought it was okay, but again, it doesn't hold a candle to the original. Then we've got Harold and the Purple Crayon. Family film based on a kid's book. A purple crayon where the only limit's your imagination. I love it. I absolutely love it. Again, just missed out on the top 10.
Number 5.
So big hitters time. Into the top 5. Transformers 1. We finally get an actually amazing Transformers movie. Too bad not many people went to see it. Which is really frustrating because this is such a great origin story for how the Transformers we know came to be. Great cast as well. And the animation looks amazing. But the reason this is so high up on the list is because UK cinemas around the UK were doing special screenings of this film weeks before general release. These special screenings took place on the same night as the European premiere of the film. So we got a special live stream from Sky VIP, from Sky, who were at the European premiere. Interviews with the cast and crew, and then a screening of the film itself. And it is, and by pure chance, I managed to speak to somebody who actually knew some of the crew who worked on the film, and I got to give them my thoughts on the film. I'm at a loss for words for how incredible the experience was. But I will say, some people were confused and thought I was actually at the European premiere. Don't get me wrong, that would have been pretty cool. But hey ho. Maybe one day I will get to go to a movie premiere at some point one day.
Number 4.
This next film, number 4, came out on Christmas Day on the BBC. It is now available on Netflix worldwide. And it's the return of our favorite dynamic duo, Wallace and Gromit. Evil, devilish penguin, away from me! Yes, we also got the return of Feathers McGraw as well. And honestly, Vengeance Most Foul is one of those rare cases where how can you fault something from Wallace and Gromit? The new voice of Wallace, you could barely tell the difference between him and the original actor, the late Peter Sallis. The two are practically identical. He fits into that role like a glove. Kind of ironic I'm saying glove, given the fact that Feathers McGraw does wear a rubber glove for his hat. But yeah, Vengeance Most Foul is one of those films that has so much British humor that some of the jokes people worldwide are not going to understand, but us here in the UK, we understood them perfectly. A couple of those in particular, I was just in stitches with how well they pulled off those jokes. And genuinely, it is a great return for Wallace and Gromit. And I really hope we get to see more of them in the near future.
Number 3.
Now we're into the top 3. This is one of those cases where I definitely need to start seeing more films on release day. Or at the very least, opening weekend. I definitely need to start doing that more often again. Because being swept up in all the hype, and it's a film that absolutely delivered. And sets up Sonic 4 perfectly. Number 3, by pure coincidence, is Sonic 3. Keanu Reeves as Shadow is a great casting choice. The way they spent time going into the backstory of Shadow, tying it into Sonic Adventure 2. This is without question one of the best films I have seen throughout 2024. And it's not hard to see why. The film is still relatively fresh in cinemas right now, so I'm going to avoid spoilers as much as possible with this one. But I will absolutely say, go and see this if you're a big fan of the Sonic franchise like myself. What else can I say to praise Sonic 3 without going into spoiler territory? I will say stay right to the end, because there is a second credit scene. I mean, the first credit scene, that's a given. That's the one that sets up Sonic 4. But I won't say what happens because, again, spoiler territory. Just please stay off social media until you've actually seen the film, because the spoilers are going to be put onto social media for some inexplicable reason, because some people have no patience and just want to ruin everybody's fun. This film definitely goes darker than the previous two films, especially with what we saw in the trailers. There are a couple of moments with Gerald and Eggman that are just, they absolutely had me in stitches as well. And every time I see those moments, I just end up buckled in laughter. I am so glad they got Jim Carrey back for this film.
Number 2.
Number 2 is a documentary. Yeah, I know. But hear me out. I included Schumacher in my top 10 films of 2021. But I will say this. Music by John Williams is one of those documentaries that definitely gives you a deeper appreciation for how somebody as iconic as Mr. Williams it's amazing how his music has lasted as long as it has. More Oscar nominations than anybody in history. More Oscar wins than anybody else in history. Blockbuster after blockbuster, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Superman, Close Encounters, Jaws, Warhorse, The Post, Saving Private Ryan. It is, for me, one of the best documentaries that I've seen in recent years. And those that know me well know how much I love my film music. And I will happily put John Williams in my top 3 of all time. 3 guesses who number 1 is. Now they just need to make a documentary on Hans Zimmer. But as far as the third person to round up that podium, I would say Alan Silvestri rounds up that podium for me. Henry Jackman will be in my top 5 as well. Thomas Newman also in that top 5. But I, for one, cannot recommend this documentary enough. Now we go into the honorable mentions of films that I haven't seen throughout this year. The Wild Robot. Yeah, blasphemy, I know. But here's the thing. This film is definitely going to be a contender during award season. But I would say there's another contender in there, Flow, which is also a film that's going to be a serious contender during award season. The fact that Flow won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Film over The Wild Robot is no mean feat, especially for an international animated film as well. Hundreds of Beavers. If you love your Tom and Jerry, if you love your Looney Tunes, if you love your slapstick comedy, this is definitely one of those films that's tailor-made for you. I've had so many people recommend that film to me, and I've still not had a chance to see it. But rest assured, I'm definitely going to have that rectified. And then, of course, you've got the modern horror icon that is Terrifier 3 and Art the Clown. One of my reasons for including this one specifically as well is because I have been curious about the Terrifier films since the third one was announced. And honestly, I am really looking forward to going through the Terrifier films, especially now that a fourth one has been confirmed. And genuinely, Art the Clown definitely brings slashers back big time. The fact that the Terrifier films don't need that big a budget to make, and he's already widely regarded as one of the greatest horror characters of all time, is testament to him being a modern horror icon. Regarding the music, Dream Kid, his song Chrissy, features in the end credits. The fact that one of his tracks is part of a horror classic, a modern horror classic. Yeah. So, time to go through the list so far before we get to the number 1. So here we go. Number 10, Heretic. Number 9, Deadpool and Wolverine. Number 8, The Fall Guy. Number 7, Paddington in Peru. Number 6, Wicked. Number 5, Transformers 1. Number 4, Vengeance Most Foul. Number 3, Sonic 3. And number 2, music by John Williams.
Number 1!
I guarantee you, if this next film wasn't number 1, it was going to be The Wild Robot that was going to be number 1. But in the end, there wasn't really any contest. This film was always going to be number 1 for me. Inside Out 2 is my number 1 film of 2024. I've gushed about this film religiously. I've gushed about the original Inside Out religiously. To the point where both films are part of an elite group in the Kingdom of Isolation that have the perfect score, 110%. 3 Pixar films and 2 Disney films have that perfect score. Genuinely, I've said before that the original Inside Out was a very relatable film for me. Came out at a time when I really needed it. Same case here. Getting a sense of deja vu with the Inside Out films. They come out at a time when I really, really need them. And I'm okay with that. I will say this. The way they portray Riley's anxiety attack. Everybody who's had one of those has been in that position more times than I can count. Even I've been in that position. Feeling like you're struggling to breathe, everything goes blurry. In my case, my head feeling like it's in a vice. And it hurts seeing somebody go through that. I've gone into more detail on how much I love this film in my Kingdom of Isolation episode on the film. So I'll just link the episode in the top right of your screens so that you can see me go into full detail on why I love this film as much as I do. Anxiety is a great antagonist, borderline villain. Envy is one of those characters that definitely steals the scene. Same with Ennui. But of course, the original cast, minus Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling, are back. And honestly, I'm warming towards the new voices for Fear and Disgust. But honestly, I would genuinely just say go and watch my Kingdom of Isolation episode on Inside Out 2. So you can hear my full thoughts on the film. So I'm just going to summarize by saying this, much like the first film, is very relatable. And there is a lot to love about this film, because this is one of those cases where a sequel was definitely justified, because you've got the opportunities to explore more complex emotions now that she's a teenager. And simply, it's just an amazing animated film. To the point where it is now, at time of recording, the highest grossing animated film of all time. It's unlikely we'll see it reach the $2 billion mark, but you never know. We've still got the Annies just around the corner. So who knows? Maybe Inside Out will win something there. But you've definitely got some stiff competition in the form of Wallace and Gromit and the Wild Robots. So that is it for looking back on 2024. Now it's time to move forward. The next video that goes up on Monday, the Kingdom of Isolation is going to be back open for business with DuckTales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp, as we start looking at the Disney Toon Studios films. Oh boy, that's going to be fun. So let me know in the comments what your favorite film of 2024 was. If you enjoyed this list, hit the thumbs up, and if you want to be a dream chaser like myself, hit the subscribe button down at the bottom, click the bell, turn on notifications so you don't miss when a video goes live on this channel. As I say, next week the Kingdom of Isolation is going to be back open for business after the Christmas break. We're going to start looking at the Disney Toon Studios films, but until then, make each moment count, and I'll see you guys next time.